This is Local Edition. My name is Brad Pomerantz. Our guest is Rick Wartzman. He is a senior fellow with the New America Foundation and a columnist for the Los Angeles Times, and we're glad to have you.
Thanks. Great to be here.
So I understand that you're focusing right now on an analysis of the middle class in Los Angeles.
Yes.
What can you tell us about Angelenos in the middle class?
Well, I do. I write a lot about the middle class from different angles, but the bottom line is that folks in the middle are really feeling squeezed. LA has always attracted a lot of very rich people. It's a beautiful place to live. The entertainment industry's here. It's a dynamic city. It's also attracted a lot of people on the low end. This is a city, obviously, where a lot of immigrants come, and often they come without a whole lot of means. And so there's a lot of questions about what's happening to those in the middle. Are we going to end up in a place with a lot of millionaires? There are 250,000 millionaires in LA. You've got more than 1.5 million poor people.
How would you define the middle?
It's a good question. Probably between the poor, which is not much for a family of four making $30,000 a year, would be on the poor end. Again, the millionaires on the other end, or those making high six-figure annual salaries. And there is this vast middle, but they're the ones who are feeling a real pinch in a lot of ways.
And let's talk about that. I want to focus first, for example, on education. Now, while LAUSD is making efforts to improve their educational system, I think a lot of middle-class families feel it's not ready now, and so they're having to spend $20,000 a year on private schools.
Well, if you can afford $20,000 a year for private school, you're probably not really in the middle, or you're in a very high middle.
Okay.
I mean, that's a lot of money. Some families obviously stretch and do all they can to get their kids into that, but if you have two kids, you know, it's suddenly $40,000 or $50,000 a year, and that's really out of reach for most people. So what you have is you do have a phenomenon of people in the middle who have been leaving LA because it's simply too expensive. Schools is a factor. Housing is a huge factor. By one index that just came out, you've only got housing within reach of about 2% of the people who live in LA.
And I'm sure you read in the Los Angeles Times that we now have 4 million Angelenos.
That's right.
We just crossed that mark.
Yes.
And so for those 4 million, housing prices prohibitive?
Yes, very prohibitive. If you're not already on that train, for a lot of people, that train has now just run away with, you know, the median housing price, you know, well over $500,000. I mean, it's just too much for most people.
Now, do you see a softening at all in the real estate market to the benefit of those in the middle class, or is it just not soft enough?
It's probably not soft enough. I mean, it would have to come down quite a bit. And that's what's really fueled this phenomenon from moving from the coast more to inland California. Right. You've seen huge population booms in the Inland Empire, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties. That phenomenon has been largely fueled by housing prices.
What about healthcare? We see healthcare rising, double the rate of inflation.
Yes.
It just seems like we're getting squeezed left, right, and center.
And another place where families in the middle are really feeling it. So the effect is there was just a survey done by UCLA, new data that came out, which showed that for 2005, you had 30% of people in LA County who lacked health insurance at some point during the year in 2005. And that shows you, it's something that's out of reach for most people and for a lot of employers to provide.
Now, through your studies, your evaluations, do you see that there is an answer? Is there a solution to try to help the middle class come out of this malaise?
Well, there is probably no one answer. It's probably a combination of things. Personally, I think that the public sector needs to do more. There's been a real erosion at the federal and to a large degree at the state level of safety net programs, and there are probably things that really need to be done in that arena, particularly for the working poor. And I don't mean when I say working poor, people who are below the poverty line. Again, I'm talking about people who are real working Californians, but who need a lift. LAUSD, again, more can be done there. I recently did a piece on the need for vocational education.
I read it.
And I think that is, again, it's not the answer, but it is an answer. And LAUSD is now trying to revamp its vocational education program. No one calls it that anymore. It's now career technical education, but that's something that could really be a lift.
Rick, we thank you so much for joining us on Local Edition.
My pleasure. Thanks.
For Local Edition, I'm Brad Pomerantz.